A boy who is hopelessly bad at talking to women, a little sister whose feelings are getting harder to hide by the day, and rich girl with a secret that could kill her. These are the leads of this new arc. Shinpei has been daydreaming about Nanako around the clock, the beautiful, gentle girl who stole his heart in record time, but his own shyness and insecurity keep tripping him up every time he tries to take the next step. Meanwhile, Akane is at war with herself, torn between being the supportive little sister who roots for her brother's happiness, and the selfish one who wants all of his attention for herself. But what truly unsettles Akane is whether that's really the only conflict gnawing at her. Things seem stuck in place until the young princess invites them for a weekend in Izu. Shinpei gets a fresh chance to grow closer to the girl he adores. Akane will try to make peace with herself. But what neither of them saw coming is that Nanako was hiding a secret of her own. This is the hand that protects your family and strangers alike, and it smells like motor oil. Those are the words echoing in Shinpei's head as he starts a brand new day. Whether it was a dream or an actual memory from the day before, he could not care less. It was a wonderful moment, and he woke up in a fantastic mood today. Nanako-san! Nanako-san! That is what he is mumbling, hugging his pillow, rolling left and right, drunk on happiness. But maybe not everyone in that house is feeling so cheerful. A scream cuts through the air. The little sister. She is in full panic mode. Akane overslept, and she is furious about it. She storms out of her room, takes one look at Shinpei, and finds the perfect scapegoat. If he was awake, he should have woken her up. Simple as that. And while she is busy blaming her brother for her own mistake, here's what she has not noticed. She is half undressed. She has no idea. Shinpei, on the other hand, is very much aware. And get this, on any other day he would react with a geyser of blood from the nose, but this time the sight strikes him with more fear than desire. At first, Akane is thrown off by her brother's strange reaction. Then she glances down at herself, and the realization finally lands. Akane goes scarlet, scrambling to close her shirt. Shinpei tries to play it off. He even attempts to fake some composure. You've, grown a lot lately, he offers, hoping to lighten the mood. Failing spectacularly, she lands a brutal hook on her brother, sending him flying clean through the roof. Poor Shinpei. The day started with a beautiful dream, but reality woke him up with a punch. Honestly, this kind of thing is just everyday life for two siblings living together, and it does not actually bother the little sister that much. Yes, she was annoyed, but the real reason was Shinpei chanting Nanako's name every 5 seconds. And that is exactly what Akane is venting about to her friend Marina. Marina knows exactly where this is going, but she decides to play along with Akane's little game. Why does him saying her name bug you so much? The little sister answers like it is the most obvious thing in the world. It's gross for a guy like him to be lusting after some woman. Marina decides to push her friend out of her comfort zone. But what if your brother actually likes her? The blow lands harder than it looked. Akane scrambles, arguing that with a face like his, the whole thing would just be weird. Marina smiles, victory in sight. At this point, nothing Akane says is holding up anymore. But it seems that is still not enough for the little troublemaker. And she throws one more curveball, suggesting that what Akane really feels is fear. Fear of having her brother's heart stolen away by another woman. Akane denies it, of course, but by now she is already playing the game by Marina's rules. So her friend delivers the verdict. This is the fate of siblings. No matter how much they care for each other, eventually each one walks a separate path, and inevitably, they drift apart. Akane still thinks to herself that, technically, the two of them are not even related by blood, but honestly, I think the point still stands. Tell me in the comments what you think. Let's go check on the center of attention for this whole arc. Right now, he is over at the Takaoka workshop. He is working, sure, but it looks like the only thing he changed since this morning is his clothes, because he still has that love-struck, dopey face, still daydreaming about Nanako. However, today, we get the introduction of some new characters. Two of Shinpei's senpais are back from vacation. The bald one is Dan-san, and the guy with the slicked back hair is Akira-san. They go to greet the boss, drop off a few souvenirs, and ask about how work has been going. The boss immediately hands them a new mission. See that kid over there? Drag him back to reality. So Akira goes over to talk to Shinpei. He calls his name once. No response. He calls a second time. Still nothing. So he decides to try something a little more extreme. I suppose the ends justify the means. Shinpei seems to have returned to reality. Akira is satisfied with the result. Dan and the boss are standing there with their jaws on the floor. Shinpei greets his senpais, sweating a little. The veterans seem friendly enough with the young apprentice. Well, sort of. With a headlock around his neck, Akira asks if Shinpei has actually been pulling his weight while they were gone. I am genuinely worried about what happens if the answer is no. But all of a sudden, a sweet scent drifts into the workshop. A scent like an oasis in the middle of all these dirty, smelly grease monkeys, and along with that lovely smell come barks. Nanako and Chako have come to pay a visit to the Takaoka workshop. The two veterans are absolutely floored by the beauty of this woman, but Dan manages to ask if she needs anything. She replies that she would like to speak with Amamiya Shinpei, flashing $1 million smile. Hearing those words, Akira decides to crank up Shinpei's punishment. The nerve of this kid, getting a visit from a girl like Nanako. Now, you would imagine Shinpei would be over the moon to get a visit from the girl who has not left his mind all day. And you would imagine wrong. He cannot string 2 words into a single sentence. Nanako came to thank him for the other day, and all Shinpei can manage is, yes. Yes, thank you. Nanako shows him the bag she was carrying. Inside is a cake she bought for Shinpei as a thank you, and she asks him to share it with his co-workers. Not one of the 4 men can produce a single word. Nanako is simply beyond their capacity to comprehend. Then she says her goodbyes, sparkles shimmering all around her. Obviously, those sparkles were not real. They were purely the imagination of those 4, completely bewitched by the rich princess. But now that she is gone, that little group can finally get back to the conversation they were having minutes ago. Shinpei looks like he has slipped right back into the hypnotized state he was in before. Akira is going to have to bring him back down to earth again. But judging by the tears running down Akira's face, he will not be nearly as gentle as the first time. Akira and Shinpei head down to the riverbank to talk about everything that happened during the senpai's vacation. The veteran asks the same thing he asked before, whether the kid has fallen for the girl. Shinpei reacts the same way as before. He turns red, but this time he cannot deny the question. Akira tries to play the big brother role and gives Shinpei some advice. Don't fool yourself. That cake is just condescence. Shinpei is baffled by the word. The veteran explains. Condescence is when the rich act kind toward the poor, and he scolds his junior for being so dense. He adds that Shinpei should never get his hopes up over a girl like Nanako, because he is poor and ugly, all while squishing Shinpei's face, making him look even uglier than usual. But it is not entirely clear whether Akira is saying this out of friendship or pure envy. The tears streaming down his face point firmly to the second option. Back in Big Brother mode, Akira says he will introduce Shinpei to some women he knows whenever the kid wants, which leaves Shinpei a little happy and a little confused. Meanwhile, Chako wanders off toward the 4th wall. And who was standing there but our favorite little sister? Akane had come to meet up with her brother so the 2 of them could head home together. Shinpei greets her with the traditional Japanese okari. Akira starts processing the situation. Then he asks who that girl is. She's my sister, says Shinpei. Akira immediately asks to be introduced to her, which leaves the brother speechless. I think Akira really urgently needs a girlfriend. Let's move over to the restaurant where the siblings are having dinner. While cracking an egg into his bowl, Shinpei thinks out loud. He wonders whether Nanako's gestures were nothing more than condescence. Akane is puzzled by that. Shinpei, feeling superior to his little sister, gives her his second-hand explanation. Condescence means when the rich are kind to the poor, but Akane did not get into Seiwa for nothing, and she corrects him. The word is condescension. Shinpei deflates a little. It would not be his turn to teach Akane a lesson today after all, but his sister was not interested in a battle of knowledge. What she wanted was the scoop on her brother's love life. She says, if he is so worked up over Nanako, why doesn't he just call her? The question catches him off guard. Akane gets more direct since her brother is playing dumb. She suggests he ask Nanako out. That suggestion catches him even more off guard. Shinpei plays hard to get, claiming he does not even have her number. Akane scolds him for not taking the initiative to get the contact of a person he is interested in, so he sits there mulling over his sister's proposal. He genuinely cannot picture himself dating a woman like Nanako. Meanwhile, Akane is fiddling with her phone, and there on the screen is a number and a name. Nanako Mizumori. She shows it to Shinpei with a triumphant smirk. She was planning something, and that something did not look like good news. Shinpei reaches out to grab that phone, but she yanks her arm out of her brother's reach. She slips on her mischievous girl mask and makes her indecent offer, 5,000 yen for the number. He protests that the price is way too steep for him. Akane is not interested in playing fair, and she threatens to delete the number, which sends him into a panic. He begs her not to. In a risky maneuver, he grabs her arm and pins her down. The end result, though, looked a lot more like an embrace between 2 lovers than an attempt to foil a villain's scheme. Akane's heart skips a beat. Shinpei, for his part, realizes he just touched his sister a little more than would be acceptable within a family. He apologizes for what happened. He was a little flushed about it, but she was completely frozen. Shinpei still manages to recover and gets back to his original goal. He breathes a sigh of relief, seeing Nanako's number still on the screen, but Akane had not yet returned to her normal self. Far from it, actually. Right now, she is feeling a mix of anger at what just happened, but also anger at herself for feeling so flustered. Still not back to normal, she at least gathers enough strength to plan a tactical retreat. She says goodbye to her brother and hurries out of there. On her way out, Akane meets up with Chako, and the 2 of them leave the restaurant. Meanwhile, Shinpei is still sitting in the restaurant. With Akane's phone in his hands, it dawns on him that getting Nanako's number was always the easy part of the problem. In every single moment the two of them had to talk, his performance was a disaster. Just mumbled words, unable to start a conversation, unable to even hide his nerves. Having Nanako's number in hand was more of a trap than a solution for the Shinpei of right now. Meanwhile, Akane and Chako still have not gone home. They are at the little playground. Swaying on the swing, a flashback sequence kicks off in Akane's head. In this past, she revisits. She hears her own voice as a child, scolding her mother for coming home without telling her. Hitomi, the sibling's mother, explains herself. She says Akane was so absorbed playing with the friends she made at the park that she decided to head home and start dinner. But little Akane is still not satisfied, because she demanded total commitment from her mother whenever they were together. The mother comments that her brother should be the one looking out for her. After all, if mom was not there, it was the older brother's job to watch over his sister. But that only makes Akane angrier. To little Akane, Shinpei did not care about her at all. Hitomi looks at her daughter with tenderness. She knows just how sensitive children are at this age, and even more so a little girl who had lost her own mother and was now living with an adoptive one. Akane was wounded in her heart, and she constantly needed to feel protected by her guardians. Gently, the mother wipes the girl's nose, since she had a bit of a cold. Akane obediently follows her mother's commands, proving that her earlier behavior was not rebellion or defiance, but a plea for attention. With Akane's issue settled, all that was left was to resolve the feud between brother and sister. Hitomi says Shinpei cares about her very much, and she believes Akane cares about Shinpei very much too. Akane does not argue or push back. Now that Akane is calmer, the mother sends her daughter off to the bath. After all, like any kid after playing in the park, she was absolutely filthy. Meanwhile, Shinpei bursts into the house in a panic. He had lost track of his sister. With a bug-catching net in hand, we can clearly see just how badly he failed her. Back to the present. The flashback leaves Akane missing her adoptive mother, who left her far too soon. But even those few moments together became cherished memories. What she had not realized, though, was that one more person carried those same cherished memories in their heart, and that person was sitting on the bench right next to her, at this very moment. Akane is caught off guard because back in the past, that brother was the one responsible for watching over her at this very park when they were kids. And here is that same brother, coming to the same park to continue the same task he started all those years ago. But beyond looking after his sister, Shinpei also needed to return her phone. Akane wastes no time and asks if he called Nanako. The brother says no. Shinpei adds something. How could he possibly call a rich girl like Nanako? Akane says that is nonsense. Shinpei falls silent. Maybe he believes his sister, but maybe he also has not told her all of his reasons for not calling. But he steers the conversation elsewhere. He and his sister, despite all their childhood fights, undeniably shared plenty of memories together. And Shinpei remembers when the two of them used to play right here in this park. Akane confirms it. She had just remembered the exact same thing. Just like Akane, Shinpei also recalls those moments with tenderness. He remembers how fun it was when the two of them played here. Akane breaks into a beautiful smile. She could not agree more, even without words. I still have fun. I'm really happy these days. Shinpei is caught off guard by his sister's tender words. He also feels a little proud. After all, it was so his family could live happily that he walked down that whole winding road. After those tender moments, Akane gets off the swing, calmer now than when she arrived at the park. But a sound throws her right back to the start, back to the origin of Akane's discomfort. That sound was the phone ringing. She was getting a call. She sees who is calling. She goes a little pale when she realizes who it is. She does not answer. She would rather hand it over to Shinpei to pick up. He is confused. Then he answers, and quickly turns bright red. Akane goes off to play with Chako while her brother shouts the caller's name, Nanako-san. Nanako had called to invite the siblings to a festival in Izu over the weekend. They would stay at her family's country villa, and they could bring along other friends if they wanted. Shinpei is over the moon about the invitation. Nanako sounds pretty excited too. Shinpei looks at Akane, tears of joy in his eyes. He tells her they have been invited. Akane looks pleased. After all, Nanako is her friend and her brother is happy. But there is a little discomfort buried in that smile. Shinpei, for his part, still has not celebrated enough. And he lets out a shout of pure joy at the thought of seeing the beautiful girl again. But maybe Shinpei is celebrating this one just a touch too much. And we are back where we started. Akane is having a hard time watching her brother fixate on the other girl. A punch to the face of the bouncing Shinpei settles the matter, at least for today. We open a new day with our little friend Marina. Since Akane and Shinpei are spending the weekend at Nanako's country villa, and they are allowed to bring friends, Akane jumped ahead and invited her friend. Akane fills Marina in on some details about the gathering. in particular about Nanako herself. But this is not the first time Marina has heard the girl's name. After all, Nanako was the one tugging at the heartstrings of Akane's brother. Marina comments that he must be thrilled about this trip. With a flash of irritation, the little sister confirms her friend's suspicion. He was absolutely ecstatic, yes. After all, he spends morning to night singing Nagasa no Balcony. It is a song about a couple in love. Look it up online for more info. Let's head to the Takaoka workshop, and today it comes with a soundtrack. The song, Nagisa no Balcony. The singer, Amamiya Shinpei. Is he singing well? Absolutely not. Look at how badly his co-workers want to skin him alive. Akira hits his limit, and he cuts Shinpei's vibe short with a kick. Shinpei questions the reason for all the aggression, but Akira answers with another question. The kid was awfully happy today. Something happened. What happened? Shinpei flinches. Maybe he wanted to hide the news of his weekend plans, but if that was the intention, he hid it terribly. He tries to play it cool and brushes off the question. Nothing happened. Where did Akira even get that idea? But it is hard to fake composure when you are sweating cold and scratching your ear with a wrench. That is exactly what Akira grumbled in the background. Clearly, Akira was going to drag the confession out of Shinpei by brute force. In the background, Tetsuo notes that his senpai has a real problem watching the juniors be happy. Sheer envy. Tetsuo then asks Dan whether Shinpei maybe got himself a girlfriend. Dan does not answer and just turns away. Tetsuo figures that is just how Dan is. Quiet and shy. Could be, comes the delayed reply. Except it does not come from Dan's mouth. It comes from the mouth of the teddy bear puppet he is holding. Tetsuo hits the floor in shock. Tetsuo wears a face of pure disbelief. One co-worker is lovesick, another is consumed by envy, and the third is a ventriloquist. Maybe it is time for the young man to look for a job somewhere a little more normal. Mio then shows up with a little surprise for the crew. Snacks. But Mio is a businesswoman. Obviously, she would not bring snacks without an ulterior motive. And the ulterior motive behind those free snacks was to lock in an invite to Izu for the weekend. Don't forget me, okay, Shinpei-chan? Akira gets even more agitated at the word Izu. Something was being hidden by the junior. Akira then puts on his gentle face. After all, he needed to be cordial. Surely Shinpei would invite him to Izu too. Shinpei, however, presses Mio. Who did she hear about Izu from? Obviously, from Akane. Shinpei had not answered Akira, so he asks again whether he is getting invited. Shinpei dodges, saying he needs to check with the Mizumoris about whether the veteran can come. Maybe the senpai was not clear enough, so he asks one more time, except this time nearly crushing Shinpei. The kid ends up partly giving in. Afraid of being left out of the party, the teddy bear chimes in, warning them not to forget Dan. Shinpei and Akira join Tetsuo in just how uncomfortable they are with their co-workers' ventriloquism. Shinpei then calls Nanako to ask whether all of these lunatics can come to Izu. Nanako is taken aback by the sheer number of people, but she is an absolute angel. She not only accepts, she says she is looking forward to it. The more, the merrier. Maybe she should have waited to see exactly who was coming, but either way, mission accomplished on the Takaoka workshop front, and she ends the call. After the call, an older man approaches the girl. He was her father. He notices that his daughter is happy. She confirms the feeling. She was looking forward to the big event in Izu, but unfortunately, her father turns out to be a buzzkill. Though he does drop an important clue for the story. He asks her not to get too excited. In an instant, Nanako's expression falls. The father keeps warning her about her body, but Nanako quickly cuts him off. She does not want to hear that story. Melancholy now, she only says that she knows about her own body. The father gives his daughter one last warning, saying she should bring her doctor, Yoshioka, along to Izu. The girl agrees. But clearly, none of the joy she felt earlier is left on the girl's face. A grim omen of the events to come. And the big day arrives, Izu. It is a beautiful beach, a gorgeous sky and sea. The whole crew is absolutely buzzing to be there. We are introduced to the Mizumori family's country villa, but calling that a house would be a serious understatement. Everyone is still in awe of the place. It was perfect, like something straight out of a movie. Akira, ever the envious one, grumbles about Shinpei's luck in landing a girlfriend like Nanako. Shinpei plays dumb, but they reassure Shinpei. He could focus on his girlfriend. His buddies would take care of his little sister. But seeing the sleazy looks on the two of them, Shinpei starts to get worried. And we see the two Seiwa students dressed up for the dive. Akira and Tetsuo get extremely emotional over the view. But it is a little uncomfortable watching Akira drool like that, and Tetsuo crying tears of joy. But nature itself decides to protect the girls and carries those sinners away. The two girls spot the guys floating off in the distance, wondering what they were after in the end. Better we do not say. Akane then notices that one person was missing from their group, and she calls out to her, "Nanako-san, don't you want to swim with us?" Nanako starts weighing the situation, but she decides to accept her friend's offer and steps down from the balcony. Akane smiles, having her best friends close by. Nanako slips into her swimsuit for a dip in the sea. Shinpei falls for the girl all over again. The girls remark on how pale Nanako's skin is, and she explains that she does not usually go out in the sun. Yet another ominous sign. All 4 Takaoka mechanics are still spellbound by the girl. The next event of the day will be a boat ride. To set it up, they draw for pairs. Akira shows off the slips for the lottery, and everyone seems excited. Of course, nature would not cut the lustful Akira any slack. There he is, sailing along with his coworker Dan, and visibly displeased with the pairing. Dan seems perfectly fine with it. On the second trip, the entire Amamiya family got drawn. There are Shinpei, Akane, and Chako. Akane slips on her teasing mask and remarks that Shinpei had rotten luck, drawing his own sister for the ride. Shinpei hints that maybe she is disappointed to be sailing with him too. Chako is fine with the pairing. But Akane shuts down Shinpei's comment. She says that actually being with him was exactly what she wanted. Shinpei is caught off guard every single time Akane seems happy in his presence. On the other hand, Shinpei gets a little uncomfortable realizing his sister was practically a grown woman now, and a very attractive one. He does not know where to look, since on that boat, the two of them sit face to face. On the boat next to them, we see another pair, Marina and Mio. They spot the siblings and shout their names. Akane is thrilled to see her friends and quickly stands up to answer their calls. But standing up like that on a moving boat was a bad idea. Akane realizes she is losing her balance, and she ends up falling right on top of her own brother. Shinpei is hit with conflicting feelings, anger, surprise, and a little bit of, wait, are those hearts in his eyes? Akane apologizes. Truly not the best choice of the day. Mio and Marina are stunned to see 2 siblings tangled up in swimsuits. Put that way, it does sound a little off. With normalcy restored, Akane enjoys the ride. Shinpei still has to keep glancing sideways to avoid staring too long at his sister's body. Chako gets a little worried about him. On another boat is the final pair, meaning Tetsuo and Nanako. Tetsuo is a nice guy, but Nanako was wishing she could ride with Shinpei. Unlike his friend, though, Tetsuo has no trouble talking to women. He opens by asking her age. Maybe not the question you normally lead with, but it is an interesting piece of info. Nanako was 19 years old. Tetsuo was about to launch into more conversation, but Nanako did not want to miss the opening and asks how old Shinpei is. Tetsuo says his friend was 18 at the moment. Nanako then realizes she was 2 years older than the boy. Tetsuo was probably about to mention his own age, but once again Nanako interrupts, asking what kind of girl he likes. For a second, Tetsuo gets interested in the topic and asks if she is referring to him, but Nanako proves to be a very pragmatic woman. She does not hesitate to correct the question. She wanted to know what kind of girl Shinpei likes, not Tetsuo. Well, they were on that boat because of the spark between Shinpei and Nanako to begin with, so any chance of those two getting together was dead on arrival. So the friend states the obvious, that Shinpei would surely want a woman exactly like Nanako. In that moment, it seemed the interests aligned. Shinpei toward Nanako and Nanako toward Shinpei. Then Tetsuo spots the siblings, and he rushes over to call out to them. But at that exact moment, a larger ship passes right beside Nanako and Tetsuo's boat. The waves make the boy lose his balance. Shinpei grows worried about the situation. That could be dangerous. And sure enough, Tetsuo falls into the water after losing his footing to the bigger ship's waves. Nanako is startled by the boy's fall and stands up, but she only repeats the same mistake Akane made minutes ago. And Tetsuo just now, standing up on a moving boat, and she loses her balance too, and falls into the water. The siblings watch from a distance with apprehension. Tetsuo had already recovered, and he manages to brace himself against the boat. The siblings now turn their attention to the girl's situation. Apparently she was managing fine, swimming up to the surface, keeping calm. But something changes. Suddenly, the girl's condition deteriorates, and she starts losing her breath. She really did enter danger in this moment. In the moment of crisis, a flashback surfaces in Nanako's mind. In this flashback, she is in a hospital. There are several pictures of hearts on the wall. In this flashback, Nanako is a child, and she is receiving news from her doctor. He explains it in terms a child would understand. He says her heart was not as strong as other children's. He advises her never to do strenuous exercise or overexert herself. He says that even the violin she plays would not be advisable to continue. And the doctor delivers one last piece of information. Nanako remembers that final piece as she sinks. He had told her that her heart was a ticking time bomb. Akane calls out to her brother. She says Nanako was already taking too long to come back up. Shinpei does not need any more explanation, and he throws himself into the water without a second of hesitation. The search for the girl begins, and luckily she is found quickly. Gently, Shinpei manages to rescue the girl. Shinpei and Tetsuo manage to pull the girl out of the water and go to check how she is doing. Shinpei shouts her name, but Nanako is still unconscious. The situation turns tense for the young girl. We return to the Mizumori's country villa. Mio was keeping watch over Nanako's treatment by the family doctor, and she was bringing the updates to the others. Everyone was anxious about the situation, but Mio calms them down. The doctor said everything was going to be fine. Everyone is relieved to hear the good news. Akane approaches her brother to share her relief that she is okay. Shinpei agrees, but he feels that something was not right. There was information that still had not been shared with them. Nanako was resting. Her face looked peaceful, but the mood seemed about to take a turn for the worse. She was getting a scolding from her father. He felt that trip had been dangerous, and that his daughter should have considered that before setting out on the crossing. Nanako does not argue. She calls her heart a coward for not being able to handle something as simple as that crossing. The day passes, and we arrive at the main event of the trip, the festival. Nanako joins her friends wearing her yukata. Nanako was the embodiment of nadeshiko, the traditional Japanese beauty, captivating not only the men but even the girls. They asked their friend if she was okay, and apparently yes. It seems she could go watch the fireworks with everyone without a problem. So she tells her friends to hurry up and get dressed, because the show is about to begin. The first two to get dressed are Mio and Marina. Marina was a total hit with those guys, but I think that is more a cause for concern than for pride. Marina is shy though and gets embarrassed at being praised. Mio also gets complimented, but she thinks they were less enthusiastic about her, gets furious, and lets fly her trademark catchphrase, which we will not repeat here to avoid breaking community guidelines. One last lady of the night was still missing. Nanako announces that she was just finishing putting on her yukata and was on her way. She remarks that the yukata Akane was wearing was the one their mother used to wear. It is a choice that surprises Shinpei, and he wonders whether it would suit his sister. Nanako says it does, and that it suits her wonderfully. Akane then arrives with a choice that brings not only the beauty of the outfit itself, but a wave of family nostalgia. She looks at Shinpei and tells him that was their mother's yukata. He, for his part, is unsettled to admit just how beautiful she looks in that outfit. After all, he felt nostalgia remembering the most important person from his past, and the most important one in his present too. The most he can manage is to mumble his sister's name. Akane is happy with the result too. The other guys at the festival are also very pleased with the result, but in a less sentimental and far more carnal way. Anyway, everyone was ready, dressed, and gorgeous for the big festival. But then Akira and Tetsuo show up out of nowhere, dragging Akane away. They wanted to go watch the fireworks together. Akane finds it strange. She says everyone should go together. Chako is suspicious of the two of them. Akira gets right to the point. They needed to split up because they could not interfere with her brother's romance. Akane is caught off guard. She was not aware of any romance in progress. In fact, both Shinpei and Nanako are caught off guard by Akira's plan. They had not planned any romantic date for that night. They were not even at that stage yet. Looking at their friends' faces, it seemed everything was going exactly according to their plans. Shinpei is not exactly happy about it. He is probably worried. While his sister looks like she is starting to get irritated, definitely upset, she agrees to leave the two of them alone. Shinpei then watches from a distance as that group of friends walks off together. Truthfully, he is sad too, having been separated from his sister. Right behind them, Mio and Dan were watching how the groups were splitting up, and they decide to go watch the fireworks too. Actually, Dan was spying on how things were unfolding, and Mio scolds him for it. Mio is still annoyed that Dan does not say a word, but they head off, leaving Nanako and Shinpei alone. Shinpei looks at his companion and does not seem all that confident he can make this manufactured date work. Nanako is a little sad too. Maybe she wished she were with everyone at the event, but the fireworks begin and there was no sense in just standing there. So it falls to Nanako to take the initiative and tell the two of them to get going. And finally, the two set off. Will Shinpei manage to seize this chance to grow closer to the girl? The fireworks come faster and faster. The puppet then asks a pertinent question. Could Nanako also be interested in Shinpei romantically? The question was aimed at Mio, but she is definitely uncomfortable holding a conversation with a puppet. Mio is a special character in this story. The mangaka usually places one of these in every story, the ones who reflect the author's own opinion and who unlock certain insights. So what she says is probably the truth. Mio says interest on Nanako's part is only natural. After all, she, the daughter of a wealthy family, found a person who is her complete opposite, and even so, a genuinely nice person. She concludes that maybe it is still too early to decide whether it is just a passing interest or real love, but Mio says there is a chance it could be love. Yes. The puppet agrees, though still not entirely convinced. Once again, Mio protests to Dan for only communicating through ventriloquism. She feels like a crazy person sitting here talking to a puppet. One more firework bursts, so let's go check on our other group of friends. Marina, Akane, and Chako are together. It looks like they managed to shake off those guys, and I would say they did the right thing. But Marina glances at her friend, and the irritation from moments ago had already deepened into genuine sadness now. She could not even hide anymore that this turn of the night was not what she had hoped for. Obviously, Marina would not enjoy being the companion of someone so down, so she tries to talk to her. Marina asks if there was something wrong with her. Akane tries to play it off and denies it, throwing the question back. Why did Marina think there was anything wrong? But that answer does not convince her friend. Then again, she did not need to come up with some elaborate theory to understand what was going on. Marina decides not to push the topic. Akane still insists on saying one thing, though her face betrays her. Finally, let's get to the main characters of the night, Nanako and Shinpei. As expected, Shinpei keeps up his horrible performance in front of his beloved, walking the path in silence and even a little distant from her. He likes the girl very much, yet he always wishes he were not alone with her. But without meaning to, Shinpei ends up leading her into an area where all the couples were having their most intimate moment. He is surprised by it himself, proving it was not intentional. He is definitely uncomfortable being there, but it seems he cannot find the strength either to turn back or to keep going. Nanako, for her part, is more honest about not wanting to be there. Yes, she was interested in the guy, but she was certainly not yet sure of her feelings, so she definitely did not want to start that kind of relationship at that moment. Since she did not know whether this detour was intentional or not, whether Shinpei might try something more forward while she herself was still unsure, she decides to simply flee. But she ends up tripping on the little stones in the middle of the path, and she loses her balance, startling Shinpei too, who once again has to save her. At that exact moment, a firework goes off, and Shinpei's attempt to catch Nanako turns into an embrace only lovers would share. Embarrassed, the girl apologizes to the guy. Then she resumes her escape from the place, still confused about everything that just happened. Separated, it is clear that the two of them are still not ready for the next step in their relationship. Oops. I almost forgot we still had one more group of friends to visit. Akira and Tetsuo were watching the fireworks together, but they certainly looked like the most miserable couple of the night. With that, the festival ends and everyone heads back to the Mizumori's house to rest after a hectic day packed with emotions. But even exhausted, Shinpei could not sleep. He cracks open a can of beer, and he decides to admire the sea at night while he drinks. But he notices he is not alone out there. It seemed his sister had the same idea that night, but her face showed a hint of melancholy, so he decides to call out to her. She answers his call, and it seems her mood quickly lifts. She looks a little happier now. He then asks if she could not sleep either. She plays it off, saying she likes feeling the night breeze off the sea. Shinpei remarks that the yukata she wore really did suit her. Akane is a little surprised by the topic her brother started. She says she could still feel their mother's presence in those clothes. Shinpei gently understands the sentiment, but Akane decides to stop wasting time and asks what she really wanted to know. She asks if her brother had any success on his date with Nanako. Shinpei again gives vague answers about this relationship. Maybe even he does not know whether the events pointed to success or failure. So he answers, maybe? Akane slips on her teasing mask and laughs at the response. Shinpei is bothered by his sister's reaction and asks her to stop, but Akane was not done asking what she wanted to know. So once again she repeats the question, whether her brother likes Nanako. Shinpei is once again caught off guard by the same question. But unlike the other night, Akane seemed determined to drag an answer out of her brother, so she presses the question, do you like her? Instead of an answer, only the sound of the sea is heard in that moment. This time, Akane had no more masks to put on. That was the true face of her feelings, and on that face there was so much seriousness and apprehension over a question that should be casual between brother and sister. Shinpei realizes he would not be able to dodge the question like before, because Akane was so serious in that moment. So, timidly, he mumbles a hesitant affirmation. Akane hears those mumbles, but the hesitation she senses is so heavy that she cannot conclude what the real answer is. She still was not satisfied. If her brother liked Nanako, he should say it with confidence, not in a mumble. So she presses, asking whether he likes her or not. Shinpei still mumbles the same thing. Akane presses one more time, but with that, Shinpei finally snaps out of his hesitant mode and manages to give an assertive answer, not to the question, but complaining that his sister was being annoying by repeating the same thing. Akane finally backs off from her assault. Maybe she realized she went too far this time. Akane falls silent after that exchange. Her brother is still puzzled by the reaction, but he notices. The mood definitely turned tense after that clash. Once again, only the sound of the waves could be heard in that place. Akane then grows sad, realizing she had not been a good sister to Shinpei. Shinpei is still bad at reacting in moments of heavy emotion, and once again he looks lost over his sister's reaction. That encounter had been a disaster for Akane. She could not even look her brother in the eye, so she announces she is heading back to her room and says goodbye to him. In one last effort, she slips on her good sister mask and says she hopes everything works out for him, before running out of there, while her brother just watched her go. Shinpei is then left alone, staring up at the night sky, but maybe more lost now than he was at the start. But one more person was awake in that moment. Nanako from her bedroom window sees Akane running back toward the house. But stranger than seeing someone running through the night was the look on Akane's face, once again stripped of her masks. Akane's true face carried a mix of sadness and unease, just like her brother. Maybe she too is more lost now than at the start. Nanako then realizes there was something about those siblings that she had not noticed before. Meanwhile, it seems the Takaoka guys had moderate success that night.